Hi guys, so the Telegraph is a Tory supporting, Brexit supporting media outlet, and sometimes it's interesting to look into how they're responding to Joe Biden's victory. Now, you're going to hear from American experts and how they see Joe Biden viewing a UK relationship with the US and a European relationship with the US. And you're also going to see the other side, the Brexiteers. You're going to hear from a prominent Brexiteer about how he views this victory. So let's hear what they had to say.
I have every reason to think President Biden will continue the strong diplomatic and commercial relations the United States and the UK have enjoyed over the decades.
The key for President Biden will be to revitalize US-UK and US-European relationships.
I agree. He's going to try to undo some of the damage that Donald Trump has inflicted upon international relations. Now, of course, the European Union has been burnt by the Americans. I think it's going to take some time for Joe Biden to rebuild the trust that's been lost. Donald Trump treated European leaders like crap. He sided with Boris Johnson. And of course, he sided with Boris Johnson on Brexit. And you're going to see how Joe Biden disagrees with that.
President Trump,
dealing with the European Union is very difficult,
was a strong supporter of Brexit.
I always find it funny how people say that Donald Trump was a strong supporter of Brexit. Donald Trump didn't understand Brexit. I would have loved to have seen Donald Trump explain Brexit to someone.
Drive a hard bargain.
With Biden, I think there'll be a little less of a close relationship maybe between the two leaders initially. I don't think he supported Brexit.
Joe Biden is a fan of the European Union. He has, over the last decades, seen the integration of Europe as a positive development in geopolitics.
I agree. He understands the past. He understands history, European history, and how important it is for Europe to be united.
Political stability.
U.S. interests are diminished with Great Britain not an integral part of Europe.
Will he punish the UK for its decision to leave the European Union? Absolutely not.
He would be a realist. He would understand this is the settled will of the United Kingdom. It's not a matter for US politicians to intervene in.
Had I been a British citizen, I would have voted against leaving
the United Kingdom.
So once again, you have the Brexiteers saying it's none of his business, he has to stay out. But at the same time, they say we want to have a greater relationship with the US. You know, the Brexiteers are saying we don't want a relationship with the EU. We want to have a relationship with the US instead. And they completely misunderstand the existing relationship and the importance of the relationship with Europe.
Not only voted for Brexit in a referendum, but it then voted very dramatically to see it through.
I think the most controversial issue, depending on how Brexit lands, will be the Northern Ireland issue.
Of course, the U.S. is one of the original guarantors of peace in Northern Ireland, and I think he feels strongly connected to that.
U.S. leaders here, Democratic leaders, Nancy Pelosi, Richard Neal, chairman of the Ways and Means Committee, they have signaled unambiguously that if this Brexit results in a hardened border between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland, they view that as a threat to the Good Friday Agreement, and that is a deal killer for a US-UK agreement.
The British government has...
Okay, so, and this is something Brexiteers don't seem to understand. They seem to think that, and the same when it comes to the European Union, they think that trade is the only thing that's important. They don't seem to understand that for the European Union, European integration, protecting the European Union is more important than a trade deal or any type of trade. Yes, trade is important, but protecting the European Union itself is more important to the European Union. In the United States, for these politicians, protecting the peace process in Northern Ireland is more important than doing a trade deal with the UK. Because you have to understand from another point of view, the UK will come and agree a trade deal with the US irrespective of what Boris Johnson or the Brexiteers say. Because the US is in a stronger position. And I still think that they would say, and what their rhetoric is, that, you know, we won't agree a trade deal if this undermines the peace process in Northern Ireland. There's no benefit for them signing a trade deal with you if it undermines peace in Northern Ireland. For these politicians, there's no benefit for them. There's a strong Irish lobby in Congress. And there's no benefit, once again. The Brexiteers seem to think that, don't worry, trade will override these political ambitions of these politicians or these political opinions of these politicians. It's not the case. In the same way that trade with the European Union is less important than maintaining the European Union itself. But Brexiteers don't seem to understand that.
Has absolutely no wish to undermine the agreement, and I think more diplomatic work has to be done with some of the senators and congressmen and women on the Hill, because I think they misunderstand what the Good Friday Agreement actually says.
He's an expert on the Good Friday Agreement all of a sudden. I've been saying this on this channel for ages. When it came to protecting the Union or protecting Brexit, the Union was thrown under a bus. When push came to shove, Brexiteers chose Brexit over protecting the Union. In the same way, it came to, if it's coming to protecting Northern Ireland, Brexit will come first. If they see a threat to a trade deal, Northern Ireland being a threat to a trade deal, they're going to protect the trade deal. Boris Johnson and the Brexiteers don't seem to understand this. There was an agreement with the European Union, the withdrawal agreement. The Brexiteers are now, after signing the withdrawal agreement, deciding, actually, we don't like it.
And they misunderstand the aims of the principal players in the EU-UK talks. It is only because the EU has been refusing to negotiate in good faith about a free trade answer that you have border issues over.
No, because you agreed something, you agreed the withdrawal agreement, and now months later, you're deciding, actually, that thing that we signed, we want to pick it apart by introducing the internal market bill. See, the problem is that the European Union were okay with the withdrawal agreement. The UK and Boris Johnson were okay with the withdrawal agreement. The United States was okay with the withdrawal agreement. Everyone was fine with it. And then months later, the Brexiteers decided, actually, let's introduce this new bill that undermines the withdrawal agreement, which in turn undermines the Good Friday Agreement. It's not just me saying it. The European Union are saying it. American politicians are saying it. And even British politicians are saying it. The only people who are saying it's not a problem are the Brexiteers. So I think you need to do more work in convincing the European Union, your own politicians, and the United States that somehow the internal market bill doesn't undermine the withdrawal agreement and therefore the Good Friday Agreement.
Customs and the movement of goods, all of those can be resolved without infringing the Good Friday Agreement. And on the British side of the border, I'm sure that's...
But you had that, John. You had that. You introduced something that undermined the withdrawal agreement. Why did you sign up to the withdrawal agreement if you didn't agree with it? Why was it voted for in Parliament by the Conservative Party in a majority in the withdrawal agreement bill if you didn't agree with it? You agreed to something, and then after You decided, actually, we don't like it anymore. Tough! You shouldn't have agreed to it in the first place.
That's exactly what the UK government will do.
The UK has profited massively in the last 200 years from free trade.
Well, the great news about doing a trade deal with the US or with anybody else once we are a free country negotiating our own trade arrangements is that we can decide. We can decide that it's worth making some concessions to get the benefits of a free trade deal.
These people still don't get it. He seems to think that the UK and the US are equal partners in a trade deal, that they're equals in some sense. Is it that John doesn't understand, or he's pretending not to understand? You know, sometimes if you push them on it, they say, okay, yes, we'll make some concessions with the US. Yeah, but at least we're free to make our concessions. They'll never say we are making concessions with the European Union. Do you ever notice that? You notice that when Brexiteers are talking about doing a deal with the EU, we hold all the cards. We're not going to make any concessions. The European Union will be making the concessions. But when they talk about doing a deal with the US, it's, yeah, well, we may need to make some concessions. Does anyone see the conflict here? The problem with that statement? What they're trying to sell people, Brexiteers are trying to sell their supporters that when we're dealing with the EU, we don't need to make concessions. But when we deal with the US, it's okay to make concessions. Why? Is it because you hate the European Union so much that you have to convince your supporters that we don't have to make any concessions? And that with the US, well, we're friendly with them, so we're going to make concessions. You have to make concessions because you're a smaller nation. The US is in a much stronger position. They can decide more in the same way the European Union will decide. And Boris Johnson has already conceded on a number of issues. It's looking likely that I still believe that Boris Johnson will get a deal with the European Union. He'd pretty much sign up to anything. It's the issue is not so much what he agrees with the European Union, it's more what he can get away with in Parliament. Now we've seen, and I've explained in this video, how Boris Johnson agreed to many things in the withdrawal agreement. It was pushed through Parliament. Brexiteers didn't have a problem with it, and then they started to read it, and then they had a problem with it. It's possible that Boris Johnson could do the same thing again, where he agrees many concessions, he concedes on many things in the final trade deal with the European Union, pushes it through Parliament, and then Brexiteers 6 months later go, hey, wait a minute, we didn't agree to this. Wait a minute, we started to read Boris Johnson's trade deal with the European Union and we have a problem with it now. It's possible they could do that. That could happen. It's happened before. But once again, the Brexiteers, I want to be very clear about this, and you have to call it out when it happens. The Brexiteers will say, we don't have to compromise with the European Union, but we do have to compromise with the US. Now, what you're going to compromise with the US, we will see. What you have to compromise on, I should say, we will see. But it's very telling that they're trying to sell you something. They're trying to sell you the idea that we are in a strong position when it comes to the EU, but we're not on an equal footing when it comes to the US.
Offers, or we can decide it isn't worth making the benefits.
I think in some ways, a Biden administration will be easier for the British government to negotiate with. There'll be some nuanced differences. President Biden will have the same interest as any U.S. president, increasing market access for U.S. exporters, a sensitivity to certain domestic interests here in the United States. So I'm cautiously optimistic an agreement will get done.
Trade negotiations between the two parties, assuming that they go forward, will take place outside the public eye. But as I said...
Yeah, and I agree 100% with that. You won't know what's agreed until after, months and maybe even years after, because these things are hidden away. These things are not public. So what Boris Johnson, you won't know what Boris Johnson has agreed to in a US UK trade deal. You'll find out later. What if you do find out something, it would be something that both sides agreed to tell the public about. But you can be guaranteed that you won't know all of it. And that's the case with trade deals. They're secret. We don't know the results of them for many months or years later. But I want to get back to this point of Boris Johnson needs a trade deal with the US if he wants to survive as Prime Minister. So he needs to make sure that Joe Biden is not concerned about Northern Ireland. So I see him dropping these aspects of the internal market bill when it comes to doing a trade deal with the European Union. This is saber rattling. Boris Johnson will eventually remove these aspects, or he will agree something in some way that these aspects of the internal market bill do not infringe upon the withdrawal agreement. The European Union, of course, have taken the UK to court, or are not actually taking them to court yet, but are beginning the procedures. So it's possible that Boris Johnson will, of course, agree something to remove these aspects or ignore them. He will agree a trade deal with the European Union because he needs it politically, and he needs it in order to get his final trade deal with the US. Boris Johnson wants to remain in office. He doesn't want to be kicked out immediately after Brexit. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think about all of this. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.